We did on this one called Solving. So we're doing a proposal.
Yeah.
Of what we would do. And then we bring proposals to the client. So like we're looking at one.
Under the back.
Which proposal, we're gonna see which ones options are on and reach out to them.
When you get in, you say, well, we'll put in. But.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
The conventions that I would resolve, you know, we're selecting for some of the bigger conventions. There
we go.
Yes. Which is fine. I mean, I can work this, but watch the Cradle already is already come. Now we do have a convention coming up in October. So there's some of the doctors. It's actually close.
What's happening with interest rates? I see the 10 years. You're right, or is that in that mortgage rates?
Hey, all.
Audrey, are you going to come talk to everybody? Are you going to come talk to them?
Am I gonna come talk to you?
No, never mind.
Just, I figured since we were so close to noon, when everyone got on. Yeah, I'm gonna wait till noon. No, I know, but the breakout rooms, I just, oh, yeah. Okay. We'll work on that.
More than so you can speed up.
So, well. That's true. I will, but I'm gonna send it to you. I was gonna say, we're recording it, so we'll do that.
We're gonna stick with the next meeting.
All right, I'm going to get started.
That's really.
All right. It's not on. it's not, just press the button on the bottom.
Hello?
Now it's on, now it's on, okay?
If I can do this?
Oh, no, it
Okay,
doesn't
it
fit.
doesn't
You gotta
fit.
do the dance.
Still really high tech.
Somebody was ordering a new folder, but
Sorry, everybody. All right.
you might have to get closer.
Might get closer. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the September 30th midday meeting of the Rotary Club of Rochester. I'm Audrey Betcher, the president of your club. To get things started, we'll do the four-way test. Of all the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right, so the reflection for today is about education. A couple quotes: the ability to read, write, and analyze, the confidence to stand up and demand justice and equality, the qualifications and connections to get your foot in the door and take your seat at the table. All of that starts with education. Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. I don't think we have any guests today. No. Okay. All right. Our member highlight today is from past president Phil Carcel.
Oh, there's some notes up right here. I'll just read these notes. Audrey asked if I would tell you a little about Phil Carcel. So for the next 6 or 7 minutes, I will do that. I started life at an early age in Indianapolis, Indiana. My father was in medical school. We moved to Bloomington, Indiana, where Indiana University is, and which is my family's longtime home, when I was 3. Our neighbor's family had a boy my age. They had a Hereford farm. And in junior high, he and I began to work there. Then we worked there all summer. We were paid $5 a day plus room and board, and we thought we had really made it. I had an increasing interest in biology, ending up graduating from Indiana University Medical School in 1965. I
How
guess
far do you want me to go?
next one.
This one or this one?
There I graduated. Sorry about
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
technical difficulties.
that. I forgot about the slide. Sorry.
Oh.
I did graduate, and Sears sent me the diploma. Back, now forward. Right there.
Okay,
I went into family practice with a classmate in Bloomington, as it turns out. We charged $5 for an office visit, $7 for a house call, and delivered babies for $50. By that time, I had married my high school sweetheart, and Kay, and we had 3 daughters. Elizabeth, who you know, is the youngest. Next slide. There is Elizabeth in her training for her Rotary position. Next slide. In 1968, following my father's advice, I came to Rochester to train to become a specialist in diagnostic radiology. We lived in Homestead Village. This is 934A, and the yard doesn't need to be mowed at the moment. I was asked to join the staff at Mayo in 1971. Next slide. I became as I told you, I was a diagnostic radiologist. Next slide.
Is that you, Phil? No?
In my early days.
Yeah. Mhm.
We lived in the country on 40 acres west of the airport. We had a big garden. The first year, I think we planted 16 or 18 tomato plants, and we had enough tomatoes for the United States. We had a flock of sheep, ending up having about 50 sheep at a time. And both Kay and I have been to shearing school in case any of you need a haircut. Next slide. Following the death of our oldest daughter in 1996, the need for me to give something back bit pretty hard. And I began to do volunteer medicine. I was part of a team from Mayo who went to Albania at that time to help Albania deal with the Kosovar refugees. As it turns out, the situation was kind of ending at that point, and Mayo ended up doing very little. Next. I went to Hospital Albert Schweitzer in central Haiti for 11 different years for the month of January, where I did radiology. Radiology there was fairly primitive, but we were able to bring things up. I tried to teach the techs how to do it, and this is a child with miliary tuberculosis. Here in Rochester, I began to work at the Salvation Army Good Samaritan Clinic several times a month. Now there are enough volunteer physicians that I only work there usually once a month. Next slide. Because I speak Spanish, Kay kept saying, why don't you go somewhere where you can use your Spanish? So when they began to kidnap people instead of stealing cars in Haiti, I began to go to Central and Central America. So we worked with a group in Mexico for, I think, 7 years, and then Honduras, and then Guatemala. Next slide. And it wasn't all medicine. We came back, and a friend at church said to Elizabeth, your father went zip lining in a white shirt. Next slide. Then I was asked to come to a Baptist hospital in Cameroon, where I taught internal medicine residents sort of the basics of how I tried to make a diagnosis from an X-ray. Next slide. Then I worked in a tiny little hospital in Honduras, and I met 12-year-old Kevin, who was having supraventricular tachycardia. He would have episodes where his heart would go very rapidly, and he would be unable to function for a period of time. And this it got worse and worse. Long story short, through amateur radio, we were able to talk to Mayo. The pediatric cardiologists did several cases, a dozen cases a year at no cost. So we brought Kevin to the United States. This was his first time out of the hospital. He'd never been out of Honduras. He'd never been on an airplane. He came with his mother. He'd never ridden in an elevator, and they'd never seen snow. This was January or February. Next slide. After his successful treatment, we took him sledding on St. Mary's Hill in the back. Next slide. I've always been a do-it-yourselfer. And a friend of mine in 1997 said, why don't we go to this furniture maker school in Maine? So we did. And that changed my life. This is a music cabinet I made out of walnut and walnut burl. Next slide. I've always been interested in nature photography. And this actually was a little guy on a flower in Cameroon in the evening. Next slide. Oh, and this was somebody on our neighbor's dock. I gave him the picture and I said, I want you to know who's using your dock when you're not here. I became a Rotarian in 1968 when Dr. Phil Holland said, I'd like to take you to lunch. This was in Bloomington. So it kind of went from there. I've been a Rotarian most of the time since then. And for a long time, I just kind of lay in the bowl and soaked up milk. But then I began to get active and I did more and more and met more people. It's been a wonderful experience. I worked in the big gray building downtown or in the hospitals and I knew all those people, but I didn't know people around town. By becoming a Rotarian, I've met people all over town. I even have met Zoe. We've had, over the years, we've been involved with 7 different exchange students, most all of them through Rotary. Ella was our first from Denmark, and we thought, oh, it'll be great fun to teach her English slang and tell jokes and this sort of thing. Well, she got off the airplane speaking 3 languages. She was totally fluent in English. Mitsue was from Japan. Before she came, we were told that these people would have never seen the stars. They'd never seen grass. They'd never had their picture in the paper because they lived in downtown Tokyo or huge cities. Well, Mitsue lived with us in the country. And Audrey remembers the Stewartville Star was a twice weekly newspaper. Well, they did a half page article on Mitsue with a picture. So she bought, I think, 12 copies to take that back to Japan to show everybody that she was somebody. Priya was the last exchange student we had from India. She was wonderful. She was 15 when she came. She turned 16. She did the Indian dance. And I think from her, I said one day, as a Hindu, what are your obligations to yourself or to the system or to God? And she said, to be the best person I can be. So I guess I would say that I like the concept of Rotary. I like the idea of world peace, one person at a time. And so there you are.
The Strive program is gearing back up to start in October with all four public high schools, John Marshall, Century, Mayo, and the Alternative Learning Center. The program seeks to support seniors to improve their school performance during their senior year. And as a Strive mentor, you're providing support to the student. You're not a tutor. And we're seeking 60 mentors, and I put forms on all the tables. I talked to Mike Becker yesterday, and we're still in need of 20 mentors. So, and you do not have to be a Rotarian to be a mentor. So if you know people, we would love you to share the information, and we're still short. So,
So sign up.
okay, please consider and please share. We apologize for not being able to take credit cards. We're working through some technical difficulties. We had a very old setup that quit working. If anybody has an old phone that not too old, the one we have is an iPhone 5, I think, and it needs to be newer than that. If anybody has one that it doesn't have to have service, we just need to be able to connect to the Wi-Fi. if anybody has a phone newer, a 6 or newer, that they're not using anymore and wants to donate it to the club, we would love that.
But it has to have the headphone jack, right?
Yeah, say what?
The headphone jack.
No.
No.
No,
This
because it's Bluetooth. The new one's Bluetooth.
Oh, I
And as a
missed
matter of
that.
fact, I can put the program on my phone and use it when I'm here.
Okay,
And I mean, as long as we have somebody volunteers a phone if I'm not here.
okay.
So me.
But I saw Julie nod her head.
I
She
think
might,
I do.
okay,
Yeah, I'll look at.
Okay.
as well.
All right.
So then we'll
But-
have a trifecta.
that would be great.
Okay.
That would be great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And starting next week, you'll be able to pay online before the meeting if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, Amber.
I'll be whoever you want.
Sorry. I work with several Heathers in the library and I have that in my head. Yeah, so starting next week, hopefully we'll be able to, when you pay for your lunch, you'll be able to pay for it online if you want to do it that way. But you'll still be able to pay cash or credit card here as we get that figured out. So thank you for being patient with us as we work through that.
So question.
Yes.
Assuming when I register for lunch.
Yes.
That's when I pay on the-
Correct.
Yep. So
When you register for lunch, you have an
RSVP
opportunity to
Yeah.
pay by credit card, so you don't have to mess with it here. Yeah.
Colin's
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. Okay, so a reminder that Thursdays are changing. And we're gonna be kicking that off on October 21st, so that's coming. We'll be having a group that will socialize. Christine is gonna pick a restaurant and you'll be able to sign up for that. There'll be a virtual option. Janine is gonna host our October version. We're gonna have a service group and a learning affinity group that we're still working on the details on that. So you'll be able to pick where you wanna go on that third Thursday. So we wanna keep it again, small groups, so people get to know each other better. And that's all part of getting to know other Rotarians. I love hearing the member highlights. I'm always so impressed with people in this club. So we'll start working on that, or you'll be hearing more about that next week and the week after that. We'll have the definitive plans for what you can pick from for that third Thursday. A reminder, I'm still looking for a volunteer to work on diversity, equity, inclusion as part of a 3-club effort. So please talk to me if you're interested. So last week I said, who's a bowler? And so I reached out to, so the district is having a bowling event to raise money for Polio Plus. And what I had said, basically, if there's anybody who's willing to drive to Mankato on October 24th to bowl, they're having, what happens is we would sponsor the bowler per pin. So that's option one. I also reached out and said, can we do something here? Can we get together and bowl here as a Polio Plus fundraiser? And I have not heard back, but I also reached out to GRR and the Risers and said, you guys want to do a local bowling tournament on the 24th? So that's all still in flux, but we'll see how that goes.
Let's just do something on the 24th here. Let's just do it, no matter what.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good, unless somebody wants to drive to Mankato and be our representative. I haven't heard anybody that wants to do that, but yeah, we can.
Let's just.
Does somebody want to organize it? Can I get somebody to organize it?
I'll do it.
Colin, yes, thank you.
My bowling is about as good as my golf game. That's what I
That's
know.
awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Colin. Okay, we will have we will have a bowling event on October 24th, and we'll have more details, but it will be a fundraiser for Polio Plus. So thank you. We will be back here next week where we'll have an in-person meeting back here with a hybrid option, and the board will be sharing its work and seeking input on what we're talking about in terms of the strategic plan. So now that we have the strategic plan, We're talking about what's the structure, what should the structure, how does the board align its work to make sure we're driving for results. And we're also talking about, then the proposal that we will be talking about is to turn the first Thursdays into committee meetings. We know everybody joined Rotary for a reason, and we want to give ourselves time to do the work that we said is important to us. And you all told us things that were important to you while we were going through the strategic planning process. And so we appreciate that input. We're really listening. How I envision it is we'll have a quick presentation on what are the things we're talking about for the board structure and some of the things, and then we'll get into small groups and really talk and say, this works, this doesn't work. How can we organize the work? And so we're really looking for your input. The board will be meeting later this month, and we'll take that input and then bring back a final structure and how we're going to keep moving forward. So I know you guys, I know some of you are like, really strategic planning again, but honestly, the library is a national award winner because we live our strategic plan. And when you were intentional about the work that's important to us, you do the stuff that's important first. And I just think that we have such great opportunity. And I look at the amazing people and the things that you said are important. And I'm really excited by it. And so I hope you join us next week as we talk about that in more detail. So, and a reminder, there is not a Rotary after hours on October 7th. Yes. Are there any other announcements before we go into the program? Okay, so our speakers today, Julie Brock, Executive Director of Cradle to Career, is dedicated to aligning the resources our youth need to succeed, Cradle to Career. Educational and racial equity are cornerstones in the work of Cradle to Career and are vital for children to reach their aspirations. With a background in K-12 education, workforce development, and a master's in human development, Julie believes Olmsted County will grow and prosper by ensuring all residents, current and future, see their work as valuable and aligned with their individual strengths, passions, and skill sets. The exploration of self starts in school and never ends. Julie resides in Iota with her husband and 2 sons. If they aren't home, you can find them outside, taking in the best of southeastern Minnesota, of each southeastern Minnesota season. And our other speaker is Jerome Pearson. He's on Zoom with us today. He serves as the president and CEO for the United Way of Olmsted County, his hometown United Way, where he started in October 2014. Previously, he served as the president and publisher for the Ledger Media Group in Lakeland, Florida. In addition to his work with United Way, he served as chairman for the Community Networking Group, co-chair for the Journey to Growth Early Childhood Committee, and chair of the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce Nonprofit Roundtable. He's an active participant in several other large community collaboratives, including Cradle to Career, where he currently serves as secretary, and the Coalition for Community Health Integration. He serves on the board for the Minnesota Association of United Ways. He's also a Rotarian. He's a member of the Risers Club. And previous private sector work included C-level leadership positions in the newspaper industry, serving with the Ledger Media Group, New York Times Regional Media Group, both in Lakeland, Florida, Aberdeen, South Dakota News Company, and Duluth, Minnesota Tribune, as well as the Rochester Post Bulletin. Throughout his newspaper career, he's also served as a United Way volunteer. He served as the board chair, campaign chair, and marketing chair for the United Way of Central Florida, and served on various community impact and campaign committees in other communities he's resided. He graduated with highest honors from the College of St. Scholastica with majors in management and organizational behavior. And with that, I'll turn it over to Julie and Jerome.
Thank you, Audrey. I forgot to pass along the instruction to edit that at will.
Oh, hey, Jerome,
Yes.
Amber's got our presentation.
Oh, super. Well, then I'll stand at ease.
Okay, good. You want to explain your background there, Cookie Man?
Oh, well, no, that's your cookie.
I know. All right. We ready?
Mhm.
Okay, Jerome, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all. It's nice to see that you are both in person and still engaging in hybrid. Hope everyone is staying safe. Both Julie and I are excited to be with you this afternoon to talk about the history of Cradle to Career and really Rotary's involvement from the inception. So we're excited to walk through this, the whole story, as the title slide shows. If you want to go to the next slide, that would be good.
You see it?
It hasn't forwarded yet on my screen.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is our agenda. We're going to really talk about the beginning. So we look at 2016 to 2018, operationalizing that beginning, and then current status as to where we are, and some horizon peaking. What are we thinking about and where we're headed? So really the result of our time together, because Cradle to Career is results driven, we like data, is we hope that you have the whole story of how Cradle to Career and Rotary have been in communication and community since the beginning.
Hey, Julie, I'd like to mention that the presentation is not advancing for those of us that are online. So you're going to have to do a full display. Is that what you meant, Jerome? Yes.
So are we on to me, Julie?
There.
Is that working?
Okay, perfect. Excellent.
All right. There we go.
Well, as I mentioned at the outset, Rotary Clubs of Rochester have been involved in Cradle to Career since its inception. And it was in 2015 that a cross representatives from all three clubs got together, I think, for at first a couple of glasses of wine in somebody's backyard. Audrey, I don't think you were part of that. And really started to ask this question: what impact is our club investments having in education? And as that conversation and that question started to kind of grow and circulate amongst the three Rotary clubs, it started a planning committee that is made up of representatives. So this 2015 was kind of the stimulation of the concept. You know, what impact is our club investments having in education, and how do we know? And that these members of the three Rotary clubs started to do some research that moves us forward to 2016. If you could advance the slide, please. That screen, it's not advancing, so maybe you're already there. I'll continue on. For those that are in the room, you can probably see it. But in 2016, the team of individuals did a lot of different research, started to center on Strive Together, which is a national network of similar community-wide initiatives to improve educational outcomes across the community, started to come into focus as a potential way to improve impact amongst for the investments of Rotary Club. Also during that time, the United Way of Olmsted County was also asking a very similar question about our educational investments. And as we started to circulate in Rotary and amongst each other, we joined in arms to start to begin the planning of a summit. And if the slide is showing on screen, in 2016, the members of that team are listed. There you go. Thank you. They include Elaine Case, Mackenzie Gutenberger, Rick Decker, Audrey Betcher, Bill Wichter, Kay Hocker from the Thursday Club, Greater Rochester Club, Patricia McPherson, Denise Kelly. And then along with that, United Way of Olmsted County, myself, I was involved as well as some staff to help support the development of a summit planning team. So the summit was being planned for 2017, and in the run-up for that planning, this group of individuals went about the community trying to build interest and gauge support for a community-wide initiative that would culminate with this summit in April 2017. In April 2017, at the summit, we invited Strive Together. Jeff Edmondson was the CEO at the time to be our keynote speaker. Again, Strive Together is a national organization. They have 70 communities that operate a very similar, what's called theory of change or approach to improving educational outcomes. And his insights were tremendous. The one that I think has stuck with us most permanently here is that most communities are programs rich and systems poor. And he was advocating for, of course, increased investments in the system side of our community. So following the April 17th, 2017 summit, the then coalition, if you could advance to the next slide, please. The then coalition of members, which was 30 plus strong organizations and individuals that had rallied around the need for improving educational outcomes for a host of reasons, some of which we'll get into as we go through the presentation. But these attendees at the summit and the coalition members then commissioned a small planning team to organize what we now know as Cradle to Career. So that took place between April 2017 and basically the spring of 2018. And in the spring of 2018, we assembled our first leadership table, which I think is probably the next slide, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, well, it's the next slide, Julie. There you go. The leadership table, which has a number of Rotarians that are continuing to serve in the Cradle to Career. But this leadership table structure is a cross-community, diverse representation from various perspectives and backgrounds that is responsible for the governance of the initiative. And we secured our first sources of funding from Mayo Clinic, United Way, and others with in-kind supports. Otto Bremer Trust, Rotary Clubs of Rochester made investments along the way. And we hired our executive director, Julie Brock, who I think at this juncture is going to take it from here. Is that right, Julie?
Yes. So I'm just going to back up a little bit. So yes, so leadership table came together in May, and then in September 2018 is when they hired their first employee, and that would be me. So when we start to think about the planning team, they put together a 44-page blueprint of what this 20-year strategy was going to look like. And so this is where they landed. So we have our purpose there, that every child succeeds and young adult succeeds Cradle to Career. And we do that with a very specific framework. So we do that through what we call a collective impact model. And that makes sure that we have a shared purpose, we have alignment and accountability across all of our community partners. And you can see there on the screen what we're really working for. We're working to make sure that every child enters kindergarten ready to succeed, that every child and young adult succeeds academically through support in and out of school. And they complete some form of post-secondary education, because we know that as of 2020, 65% of our jobs require some form of post-secondary education. So there's a lot, and we need to make sure that our graduating classes know that, and they have a place to go to get that training. And then they enter and advance in a meaningful career, and they contribute positively to the economy and to the community, we hope, by joining Rotary. So when that planning team started up, we were a small but mighty ship, and it was a big task to take on, because it really was interpreting what was this 44-page guiding document going to look like in operations. And that's really what my first 4 or 5 months of the job was, is taking it and putting it into operations. And then really, Jerome has covered what that initial coalition did in order for us to then to open 2 networks. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And we hired our data director and our community engagement director, and now we're a mighty team of 3 with support from United Way. So we love that we get a little bit of in-kind administration support from them. And we really did put that blueprint into operation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we've covered that. So we enter into this place of building and flying the plane. we knew what we wanted. We didn't know how it was going to come together. And Strive Together does a really great job of providing frameworks, but they don't tell you lockstep how to get something done because it depends on the community and it depends on the community assets. So that was really exciting for us. The leadership table had already recommended that out of our 7 networks, we started 2. Our kindergarten readiness network, I'll talk about that in a bit, and then also our high school graduation network. And so when we pulled those together, we wanted to make sure that we were creating the right structure for success. And these are the 3 frameworks that we really use to make sure that we are marching toward results. And that's everything about Cradle to Career, is it really is about what are the results that we are aligned to and how are we making progress toward those. And we use a collective impact model, which I've talked about. We use the Strive Together framework. And what that is it's really focused on systems transformation. So it's not enough for kids to be graduating from high school if they're not ready for their next step. It's not enough for the state to say, oh, a kid is 5, they can go to school. That's not enough. No, it's not setting our kids up for success. And it's not enough to just look at 3rd grade reading if we're not looking at the structure at home. How are our kids being taken care of? Are they food secure? Are they house being secure? These things matter because we can't ask a kid to learn if they don't have some of these foundational pieces in place. And that's why this is something that can't be done without every single community asset across our community working together to make sure that we can reach our vision. And a vision of Cradle to Career is a healthy community for all. So the other a piece that the board then took on was trying to figure out what is our strategy. So when you have a 20-year plan, how do you break it down and make it manageable? And so this work in this diagram, you can't read everything on it, but I'll talk us through it. The biggest thing is that circle on the outside. So everything we do for educational equity and also racial equity. We want to make sure that our kids and the systems that they are in are serving them well. And so that circles everything because it reminds us, it's not a lens that you take off. It is the way that we see the world. And that's the way that we look at the data. And it's the way that we look at our community partners and the way that they're coming together to do this work. And then I'm going to take you now to the center. If you see where that child is sitting, they're sitting on a whole bunch of blocks. We call those the foundational blocks. And the words that you can't read there are things like food security, housing security, mental health and well-being. Again, we can't ask a kid to learn if their house isn't stable. So what are ways that we can really show that intersectionality across our programs and make sure that we are addressing multiple barriers and recognizing that each kid is individual. So individually, they're going to have needs, but also collectively, they have needs. And we look at both. And then you'll see that the outer circle around the child on the blocks, those are our collaborative action networks. That's what we call them. We call them their networks. And each of those circles represent a shared result. And within that shared result are all the community partners that say, yes, we have a program that aligns with this. And yes, I'm coming to the table. I'm going to share my data. I'm going to share my best work, and we're going to learn from each other. So this is the structure right now. We have 7 networks. The 2 bigger ones that are blown up are the 2 that are open right now. Each of those networks have a convener. A convener is essentially a community partner that steps up and says, yes, we carry the expertise, and yes, we are willing to take on this work and be a role model in it. Yes, we will lead this effort. So for our kindergarten network, our convener is Families First of Minnesota, with Sandy Seymour and Amanda Lasik at the helm. So fantastic. And then they have about a team, I think they have about 16 different community partners that are working toward kindergarten readiness. In high school graduation, our convener is the Boys and Girls Club, and Chad Campbell is then leading that effort. And they have about 18 to 21 community partners that are then working on ready for their next step. Diane has been representing Strive in that network. And so they're doing some great work. So what we are is we're what we call backbone staff. Okay, initiatives, we've seen them. We've seen initiatives come and go. We've seen volunteers come and go, but we know staying power is if there is staff that is dedicated to this work. And that's really what our staff at Cradle to Career does. We supply the backbone infrastructure to make sure that this work gets measured, gets communicated, gets scheduled. And that dedication of having staff means that it actually does move and it gets done because we're holding all of our community partners to what we call in the biz warm account. Sometimes people don't like to be accountable, but we warmly welcome you to share your data, make your deadlines. And we'll hound you if you don't, in a nice way. But that's what we find is really beneficial. And the fact that Cradle to Career isn't part of one of these partners means that we get to be kind of the neutral ground. And that's really, really beneficial and important for this work as well. And then at the bottom there, we have leadership table. They're powering this as well. They set our strategy, they govern, they make sure that we're making our progress toward those ends that we went over at the beginning. That's a weird sentence, the end at the beginning of the end, perhaps. No, we don't want that. And so what we do is we have 2 levels of measurements within each of these networks. We have a high level population level result, and that's what's in the circles themselves. And then each partner has what we call a program level measurement. And that program level measurement is what they're contributing to the overall success of each of these networks. So I really encourage you, please go and look at the full report on our website. We'll send these out and I'll get the link to Amber so she can send that out to you as well. Because these numbers don't tell the whole story. And that's what I'm really here to talk about too. Another differentiator of Cradle to Career is that everything is data informed or data driven. That's what we're about. It doesn't matter if we're trying really hard, that's not good enough. What's good enough is that we can tell the story of our results. So I know that the board sometimes gets sick of me, maybe Rotarians do too, because I'm the one that's always coming like, but what does the data say? But what is the results of that? That's fantastic that we did that. Why are we doing that? Who's better off because we did that? And that really is because of my work with Cradle to Career. I'm really passionate about that. So what you're looking at here is what we do every year. In our annual report, we collect that population level result through the different indicators. And what's really exciting about this is I want to tell the story about to kindergarten readiness. When kindergarten readiness opened, their data said that only 31% of children were ready for kindergarten. And our partners and our conveners didn't like the story because it wasn't the real story. It was one data indicator, cognitively, measuring what a kid needed to know cognitively, right? Like, can I read, can I write, can I identify my letters? By the end of kindergarten. So it wasn't that 30% of our kids, that only 30% of our kids were ready for kindergarten. It really was that 30% of our kids already knew what they needed to know by the end of kindergarten cognitively. And all of our partners were like, but that's not the whole story. Kids learn differently and they learn at different paces, and there's all this different early learning childhood indicators of progress. I mean, there's so much data. Why aren't we using it? So they started to collect it. This is what's so powerful about this initiative, is that these are the practitioners saying that is a wrong story and that's shortcutting our kids and we're not going to tell it anymore. So in our annual report, we actually did not put data out. It said data under development. We weren't going to tell a bad story on kids anymore. And this year we were able to put this out. Now, for anyone looking at this, it's really overwhelming. And there's narrative that goes with it. You don't have to know what it means. But what this means to me is this is 16 partners sharing their data, figuring out how to pull it, scrub it, and put it together so that they have a better idea of how our kids are going into kindergarten 5 out of the 6 domains of readiness for kindergarten. The power of this, and this is local real time. This was pulled last December during 2020. This is powerful. This is 28% of our class in kindergarten right now. We know collectively where our teachers can focus in their classrooms. We know now how to maybe set up customized summer programming versus kind of this general blanket for any 5-year-old. I mean, the power of this is truly addressing the actual individual needs of every kid. And that is what gets me up every day and makes me so excited, because this is, now they're sitting there like 28%. Where are all the others? They cold called every single education setting, pre-K education setting across the community. They cold called them all to figure out who had data that they could crosswalk with this. And they're like, we got to get them in, Julie. We got to get them in, because if they all joined and if they all gave our data, we have 60% of the incoming class of kindergarten. I mean, they're on fire because now they see the power of the story, right? And it's exciting. So that's kind of where they're at. And tangible things comes out of this. They're like, oh my gosh, our kids aren't, where we want them to be. We'd love to see 80%, right? We'd love to see, we're never going to really see 100%, but we'd love to see 80 or above in all of their measurements. And so they looked at this and they're like, what are the things that parents need? What do they need? Because parents a lot of times don't know that what they're doing is actually preparing their kids for kindergarten. Having a kid and help you empty the dishwasher and put the utensils back where they belong in the right slot is getting them ready for kindergarten, because that is following directions. That's identifying shape and that like goes with like. And so they put together these great cards, and they're called the Kindergarten Readiness Card. We're working on a title. That's not really catchy, but there were a set of cards that translated in 3 different languages and that align with the domains that we want our kids to know by the end of, or by the time that they hit kindergarten doors. So I could geek out like this and tell you all sorts of things, but I'm watching the time. I'm moving on. So where does Rotary come in? When we were building the plane, that's really what we were focused on. We were building the plane. Rotary was represented in both networks. Like I said, the STRIVE program is involved in the high school network. And then Beth Sheridan was doing double duty. She was there for Rotary in kindergarten when she was still at the Children's Museum, but we don't have a representative right now in kindergarten readiness. But the whole point of the 3-club C2C committee that we've newly formed is to really think about how does Rotary influence and connect and get involved in Cradle to Career, whether that is at the advisory role where Audrey and Elaine have been serving on the board, but and also the practitioner board or practitioner role, being involved in those networks, and then also just the sustainability. The power of Rotarians. I mean, when I think about the STRIVE program, if somebody said, what could I do for Cradle to Career today as a Rotarian? I'm like, go be a STRIVE mentor. That's what our kids need. They need really smart, engaged adults in their life, telling them they can do this, because the world is overwhelming. And really, as a high school senior, if I haven't made my plan yet, it means I don't have a plan. And if I don't have a plan, you guys, what are they going to do? Work as, I mean, and work as a barista? I mean, that's okay for a little bit, but wouldn't it be powerful to have an adult say, have you thought about taking some internships? What's great about an internship is 3 months, it's temporary. You can explore some professions and then make a plan from there, right? That's the power of Rotary. And that's why it's so important for Rotary to stay engaged. It's part of the reason why, again, I pushed on our board to say, can we have a measurement person? Can we have an evaluator? So that I can give back to Strive the power of their program and they can go sell that to get more mentors, right? And then that's a contributing factor to our high school graduation because we know that kids need powerful, engaged adults, not in a one and done way, but in a meaningful relationship over time. And I think that that's one way that we can really make a difference. But don't worry, there'll be other things that are not so labor intensive as well. We'll make sure that there's a variety on that menu that you can choose from. So I think it's a love letter a little bit. Thank you. Thank you, Rotary, for asking the question. Because if you didn't ask the question, we wouldn't investigate it. If we didn't investigate, Elaine would be still crying over the data that she found. And that is that we have a 20-year stagnant education gap. And it's access and it's opportunity. It's about networking. Rotary seems like the natural partner and a really meaningful one. So I thank you for asking the question. And I thank you for continuing to stay involved and continuing to ask questions and get in on this work because it's exciting work and it's different than what we've done before. And part of that is because of the investment in the staff that holds us all to just a little bit of warm account. So thank you. I'll take questions.
Looks like Sarah has a question online here.
Well, it's a question. Oh, can you hear me? First of all, I unmuted, so.
You
Yes.
sound great.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for your whole presentation. And I know we talked about it in our small group, but thank you for especially focusing on Strive because it is absolutely not the cradle part, but when you let them go into the world when they're 18 and you don't know what they want to do. Or I've been a Strive mentor for over 10 years and I've had a variety of successes and non-successes, but lately more successes. And I'm telling you, these young women who have been given to me to just be a friend to, because that's all it is. It's no work. It's no tutoring, as you said. It's just friendship and support. And I can't stress enough. And I know Strive needs a bunch more, 20 more. So I encourage any of you who have never done it before. It is easy. It's an hour a month. This is a commercial for Strive. And
I'll pay you later.
it is so rewarding. The last two students I've had have done amazing things and won scholarships. And so and not because of me, but you just be there and be their friend and give them positive, whatever. And so I think you're wonderful and I love your program. And it's great that you put Strive on the other end of it. Thanks.
You bet. Thanks, Sarah. Any other questions? Oh, Audrey.
I just want to remind everybody that it was a Rotary district grant that gave us the summit.
Okay, for those online, it was a Rotary district grant that gave us the summit in which Strive Together and Jeff Edmondson came and talked with us.
I'm sorry I left that tidbit out, Audrey. That's a great addition. Absolutely.
So Jerome or Julie, it's Ashok online. Again, congratulations for such a wonderful, clear presentation. I guess I had two questions. One, going forward the next 3 years for our 3 clubs, how can we prioritize, or how much should we invest in Cradle to Career that you think will make the tipping point sustained? And I'm particularly asking for the target populations of the BIPOC group and the intergenerational. And then just a comment, everyone in this Rotary Club has been a mentor to me. And I think the Cradle to Career may set a collective impact for the school population or the undergraduate, but do know, even with Phil Carcell's presentation, Judy O'Fallon's presence, and all of us, the mentoring transcends, and the collegiality transcends what we do individually with business. So as we think about Cradle to Career, maybe extend it from career after retirement to include, if you want, coffin, but you know, emeritus staff make a real, they make a real world of a difference to us, and that wisdom shouldn't be lost. It's the power of what Phil shared with his purpose, his peace, the feedback from that Indian girl who he hosted at the end to say, I want to become the best person I can be. If we can get each of us to kind of rise up to that occasion, I think we would have made progress, and it'd be hard to measure some of that, but
absolutely. So Ashok, for your first question, what will get us to tipping point? Oh, that's such a great thing. I think both time and talent, I think, are number one. You know, clearly I'll take your money too. I'm not shy. But when we really think about what you're talking about, it's about investment. And so I do believe that Cradle to Career does take us all the way to the love, like to the end of our life, because if we're investing back in to the community, whether it's through mentorship or it's through, you know, cheerleading for Cradle to Career or spreading the good word, all of those things are meaningful and needed. That I think gets us to a place where we are sharing and we are mentoring and we are encouraging each person to be the best version of themselves, right? Like to be the best person that I can be. The second piece is that we won't know, I mean, we need to grow, you know, that's part of it too. We've gotten two networks open in 3 years, but that was also building the infrastructure and the foundation of the organization itself. I think we can move faster now, but it takes time and it takes some resources in order to do that. So we are looking to open the next network, hopefully fall of 2022. And we're in the validation process of that. I would love to give you a sneak peek, but I've been told by my data director I cannot, so I won't. Phil.
Obviously, a great deal of what you have looked at and the data you collected impacts the school system. So how much interest and cooperation are you getting from the schools? Because I'm sure they're saying, oh, wonderful, another group to tell us how to do our job.
Yep.
But obviously you are collecting the data. You can say here. How much cooperation are you getting?
So the question for those on Zoom is that what's the cooperation with the school district? I will say, Phil, it's been really exciting, and it's been, you're right. Like at first there's a little bit of opposition, right? Like, you know, are you going to sift through our dirty laundry? Are you going to make us look bad? You know, and we're not about that. So it's been about building that trust from organization to organization. But we have representation of, especially, and I'll talk mainly about Rochester Public Schools, because they're our biggest educational partner in our region. We have representation of practitioners in both networks. We have superintendent has a designated spot on our board. And we have 2 school board members and cabinet member also on our board. So we make sure that that happens. And then also through our partnership, Jerome, maybe you might want to talk about this a little bit. I'm watching time. Ooh.
Yeah.
Holy nuts. Sorry. We can talk about this forever. Phil, we can have an after one, but community schools is another initiative that United Way has started and fostered. And so we've been able to leverage that relationship as well. Okay. I gotta go. Yeah.
I can hang online for a little bit.
Jerome, hang out.
I can hang online for a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie and Jerome. As a thank you for your presentation, a gift will be given to Journey, a nonprofit youth organization providing support, life skill training and mentorship to youth in the Rochester community. And a couple other quick announcements. We have scripts here today. If anybody wants to buy them, I think we have Quick Trip and
Some other one.
Menards.
No, I think it's Apollo.
Okay, we have a couple of those, Quick Trip for sure.
Yeah.
We do have some leftover lunches. If anybody wants to buy a lunch on their way out their door, we would appreciate that. I have a kind of a selfish announcement. The library just received a $600,000 plus grant to provide connected Chromebooks to people in our community working on educational efforts. So we're doing this through partnerships. So if anybody's working in an organization that has clients that are working on educational goals that do not have access to the internet, call me. This is happening really fast. And so the client would get the Chromebook plus internet access through the end of June of next year. So call me. Yeah. So
What's the source of the grant? Who is the source?
It's part of the E-rate. It's the Emergency Connectivity Fund is the grant program. Yeah. So, yeah. So we're super excited because one thing we certainly learned during COVID is that not everyone has access to internet. And when you don't, it has a huge impact on your educational outcomes. So as we close out today, I want to give thanks to those who assisted. Colin was our greeter. John was at the visitor table and our sergeant at arms, and a special thanks to our speakers, Julie and Jerome. Thank you all. Serve to change lives. We are adjourned. I need to get my rhythm down.
You run a tight meeting, Audrey. Thank you.
So, Julie, are you working with a lot of what you talked about from the early childhood standpoint? When I was doing in-home daycare, I was on the career lattice, a step 3 or 4 for parent aware.
Yeah.
I assume they're
Scripts. John's got part of it.
Yeah, so they're gonna, yes, so where our next strategy is reaching out to in-home daycares to make sure that they have resources that they need in order to continue,